Hi there, welcome to Microsoft Azure Training Series. My name is Neeraj Kumar. I am a cloud evangelist and enterprise architect, and I will be your instructor for this course. Hey there, this is part 1 of the Managing Identity and Access in Azure Active Directory in the 4-part series, and this module specifically focuses on understanding the security, responsibility, and trust in Azure. This module is mostly theoretical, which forms the basis for the rest of the course in this Azure AD series. In this module, we will first discuss on the layered approach to security, where we will discuss on the defense in depth strategy, which is related to employing series of mechanisms at each layer to slow the attack aimed at getting access to the information or the data which is not intended to be accessed. So this is all in all 7-layered approach. We will then focus and discuss on how we can utilize the Azure Security Center to get the security tips. It is actually the monitoring service that provides protection against the threat, not just for the services in Azure, but also on premises. It provides the security recommendations based on how it has been configured. We will then discuss on the authorization and authentication in Azure with the identity and access management. We will try to understand the Azure AD and the services it provides. Here, we will also discuss on the additional level of security using the MFA, which is the multi-factor authentication. This will also be followed by understanding the data encryption, which of course you will acknowledge is the most valuable asset for an organization. Finally, we will finish off this module by understanding the security consideration for the application lifecycle management, which is through the Microsoft Security Development Lifecycle, whose job is to introduce the security and privacy consideration during all phases of app development process. There is a lot to cover, so without wasting any more time, let's get started. You will appreciate that security is the first thing and the topmost priority during the design of the system or architecture of an application. Just imagine what would happen if there is a denial of service attack and you or your consumers of your services, your customers, are not able to reach your application or the website or the service that they wish to access. There can be another kind of security incident, which could be a data breach. This is even worse, as this could lead to legalities and loss of both reputation, money, and business. We should therefore take a layered approach to security, which is termed as defense in depth. As I told you moments ago, this strategy utilizes a series of mechanisms for stopping the advancement of attack at the different levels with an intention to get access to the information. This approach add their own layer of security to protect the data or the information, which is the core. So the first layer is the data layer, which is where the unintended access is sought by the attackers. This data is stored in a variety of places, including the databases, storage accounts, within the Office 365 or other SaaS application, or even inside the virtual machines. Then at the application layer, we need to ensure that the applications are secure and do not have any vulnerabilities related to the security. For this, we need to store the sensitive information in a secure storage and ensure that all the security design requirements are met. This helps in reducing the vulnerability at the code level and all the security requirements are met. We can also combine Azure DDoS protection with application design best practices for protecting against DDoS attacks like volumetric attacks, protocol attacks, and the resource layer attacks. These are actually a separate topic in itself and should really be looked into. At the third level, we have the compute, where as an administrator, we need to ensure the secure access to the virtual machines. Keep the security patch up to date and also implement the endpoint protection. This will help keep the machines healthy and secured and also minimizes other security issues to occur. We then have the virtual network. At this layer, we need to ensure that the communication between the resources are minimal and happens only when needed. If there is no need, no communication happens. Simple. Here, we should also take care of the inbound and the outbound traffic, which can be put to place by using the services like NSG, which is the Network Security Group. With NSG in place, you can create a list of allowed and denied communications. Bottom line is, you need to control the traffic inside your virtual machine. In cases where the network communication has to happen between the on-premises systems and Azure, we need to use the VPN connection for secure communications. Then we have the perimeter. Now this one seems to be a little off track by name, right? But actually this refers to the use of distributed denial of service protection. How does this help? This is used for filtering large-scale attacks. The question is how it can be implemented. This can be implemented by having firewalls implemented at the perimeter to identify and prohibit malicious access. For this, you can use Azure Firewalls, application gateways, which not only provides the load balancing abilities but also can act as the web application firewall, WAF, and the network virtual appliance, which are ideal for non-HTTP services, and you can compare them to the hardware firewall appliances. Then at the sixth layer, we have the identity and access security. This is where we need to control the access to the infrastructure and resources, exploit the SSO and multi-factor authentication. The SSO is single sign-on and MFA, as I already told you, is the multi-factor authentication, and also have continuous monitoring implemented for the events and changes occurring. This will help secure identities and have proper authorization and authentication as and when required. Last but not the least, we have the security at the physical layer. It is often termed as the first line of defense and comprises of building physical security to the resources at the data center level. Understand that these security approach can be shared between your organization and Azure and depends on the model you have, which is IaaS, PaaS or SaaS. Now is the time to discuss about Azure Security Center. When you start developing an Azure-based solution and you wish to examine the security of your solution, one of the places to start with is the Azure Security Center. As an administrator, you must know that the Security Center is a monitoring service that provides threat protection of your services both in Azure and on-premises. Azure Security Center provides you security recommendations, which is based on how you have configured your resources and networks. It also monitors security settings across the on-premises and cloud workloads, and it also applies required security to new services as they become available online automatically. They continuously monitor all your services, and they also perform automatic security assessments in order to identify potential security vulnerabilities. They use machine learning in order to detect and block malware from being installed on your virtual machines and services. What we can do is define a list of allowed applications in order to ensure that only the apps that we validate are allowed to execute. It analyzes and identifies the potential inbound attacks, helps to investigate threats and any post-breach activity that might have occurred. It provides just-in-time access control for ports, thereby reducing the attack surface by ensuring the network only allows traffic that you need. The Azure Security Center is available in two tiers. One is the free tier. This is available by default with your subscription. Of course, anything given free will not have all the goodies packed together, and you have to agree to that. This is true for the free tier as well. It is limited to assessing and providing recommendations for Azure resources only. Then you have the standard tier, which provides complete functionality and security related services. Let us now discuss about the Azure Security Center usage. So the first one, there are different stages where Azure Security Center can be used to act and provide response. These stages are detect, assess, and diagnose. And once diagnosed, then stabilize and close. The second one is enhance the security, for which we need to define the policies, and based on the configurations and policies, all the security related events can be significantly reduced. It analyzes the security state of your resources. In case of a vulnerability detection, it creates recommendations in order to help us by providing guidance on how to proceed further. There are certain caveats though, which I would recommend you to please go to the Microsoft Docs to see and learn the best practices of Security Center usage. Let us now discuss about the identity and access. With organizations developing new working norms and also more and more complex applications with each passing day, it becomes increasingly important for them to plan for the security beforehand. Correctly identifying, authenticating, and authorizing a person or a resource trying to gain access to another service, resource, or applications is extremely important. Having said that, identity has now become the primary security boundary. I hope you are already aware about Azure AD, but just to reiterate and ring the same bell again, it is a cloud-based identity service. It is similar to the on-premises Active Directory, and it has the support for synchronizing with the on-premises Active Directory using Azure AD Connect. We will talk about it in the later modules. So think about the endless possibilities here. All your applications, be it on-premises or on the cloud or even the mobile devices, can share the same credentials and can be governed using the centralized rules and policies in Azure AD. So Azure AD provides services such as authentication and authorization. This includes verifying and authorizing the identity to have access to the applications and resources, and it also provides functionality such as self-service password reset, multi-factor authentication, a custom banned password list, and smart lockout services. Then the single sign-on. This enables users to remember only one ID and one password to access multiple applications. A single identity is tied to a user, simplifying the security model. As users change roles or leave an organization, access modifications are tied to that identity, greatly reduces the effort needed to change or even disable the accounts. Then application management. You can manage your cloud and on-premises apps using Azure AD Application Proxy, SSO, and other software as a service applications. Business to business and business to consumer identity service also, where you can manage your guest users and external partners while maintaining control over your own corporate data, and also customize and control how users sign up, sign in, and manage their profiles when using your apps with the services. Then we have the device management, where you can manage how your devices, be it on cloud or on premises, access your corporate data. We will keep this discussion limited about the Active Directory and its capability for now, but I'll be taking up these topics like MFA, multi-factor authentication, application security using service principal, and managed identities in the subsequent modules, because at that point of time, I'll show you the demo on how to work with them. It is a correct time to discuss about encryption of the data and information in Azure as a part of the security. When the data is encrypted, it becomes the strongest line of defense in the layered security approach that we had discussed earlier. I don't think encryption is something which needs to be explained to you, but still a little discussion is definitely needed on the types of encryptions. So the first one is the symmetric encryption. This type of encryption uses one single key to encrypt and decrypt the data. One simple example is the passwords that you use for validating or verifying yourself, and to access and retrieve the data from the stores. The second one is the asymmetric encryption. In this type of encryption, we have a pair of public and private key which are used to encrypt and decrypt the data. In asymmetric encryption, either one of the key can encrypt the data but needs a paired key to decrypt the data. So this kind of encryption is used for transparent layer security, which is used in HTTPS. There are two very important aspects to be kept in mind for the encryption. Actually, these are two approaches. These are encryption at rest. This is for the data which is at rest and has been stored. It can be on a server, in the database, or even in the storage accounts. So it means that regardless of the storage medium, the encryption of the data at rest means that the stored data is in the encrypted, non-readable format and requires keys to decrypt it. The second one is encryption in transit. The word transit itself tells the whole story, right? This is for the data which is traveling between the source and the destination, that is between two or more locations, and is not at rest. This can be achieved by a number of ways. One way is to encrypt the data at the application layer before sending it over the network. HTTPS is a classic example. Another way is to use the VPN connection, where the communication happens over a secure encrypted channel. Data is encrypted before it travels and then decrypted when it reaches the destination. Apart from what I had just told you, that there are two types of encryption. One is encryption at rest and the other one encryption in transit. We also have encryption on Azure. In this case, Azure enables the encryption of data across its different services. One of them is the Azure Storage Service Encryption, which is used for encrypting the data stored in the managed disks, blobs, queues, files, etc. So this is considered as the low-level protection. Then we have the virtual machine hard disks, VHDs encryption, where the VHDs are encrypted. This is known as the Azure Disk Encryption. This will help in cases where a malicious user got access to subscription and wishes to steal your complete VM along with its data. Next is the database encryption, where we have the transparent data encryption, abbreviated as TDE, transparent data encryption, which helps in the real-time encryption and decryption of databases, its associated backups, and also the transaction logs. By default, this TDE is enabled for all the newly deployed Azure SQL database instances. And finally, we have the Azure Key Vault, which is a centralized cloud service for storing the secrets and the keys to be used for your applications. It provides secure access, permission control, and access logging capabilities. It can be used for certificate management as well, key management, secrets management, and also store secrets backed by hardware security modules. So the bottom line is that they provide huge benefits like centralized management, easy integration with the Azure services, and simplified management. Next is the application lifecycle management security. For the application lifecycle management security perspective, there are a couple of best practices and steps defined by Microsoft in the Microsoft Security Development Lifecycle, which should be considered. Best part is that it has security and privacy considerations for all the phases of the development lifecycle. To be true, the Microsoft Development Lifecycle is also used internally by Microsoft for its product development as well, which now Microsoft has made available for everyone's use. This really helps in building secure solutions that meets security recommendations, are highly secure, and helps in reducing the development costs as well. Let's discuss them one at a time now. The first one is to educate your team. Provide training to your team so that everyone in the team understands the security basics, define proper security policies, and ensure that the security policies are being followed. The second one is define security requirements, which is a must when designing the solution itself. All the vulnerabilities must be thought through and security requirements must be outlined properly. That depends on the internal standards, legal and industrial requirements, and so on and so forth. This becomes the basis for defining the security policies. One very important thing is that the security requirements must be revisited frequently and accordingly the policies must be updated. The third one is define metrics and compliance reporting. It's prudent for the organizations to define the minimum levels of security quality that can be accepted. This is needed early in the stage as it helps team to understand the risks associated with security issues that may arise, identify and fix the security defects during development, and apply the defined standards throughout the entire project. This also requires setting up the SLA as well and all other dependencies and metrics around it like KPIs, GPIs, etc. The fourth one is the threat modeling. It is an extension to defining security requirements where applying a structured approach to threat scenarios helps the team to more effectively identify security vulnerabilities and at lesser expense, determine risks from those threats, and then make security features selections and establish appropriate mitigations. You can apply threat modeling at the component, application, or system level. The fifth one is establish design requirements. The designing of the application is done in advance, and so is the case with security vulnerability identification, defining mitigation strategy, authentication and authorization, logging issues, etc. All these should be a part of your initial design strategy. Keep that in mind. Then we have the define and use the cryptography standards. Define an encryption strategy for the components in your application. Apart from the application data at rest, we should also take care of the encryption of data in transit and the hardware resources and the data centers as well. Remember, we discussed about them in our previous slides. Next, we have the monitor and manage risks from third-party components. In developing today's high-end solutions, it sometimes becomes necessary to use third-party components. These components, although are developed as per the industry standards, but still, as an owner of your product, it's your responsibility to monitor and manage the risks that might be imposed from the third-party tools and components being used. It is very important to understand the impact that might be there with any security vulnerability in those components at large. Then always use approved tools. This can be considered as an extension to the previous point that we just discussed. Analyze the security vulnerability and other risks with the third-party tools, and based on that, take a decision to either approve or disapprove from being used in your project. One of the very important factors is the security testing, which can be divided into three parts. One is the static analysis security testing. A simple example of SAST, which is static analysis security testing, is the security code review. This helps in ensuring that the security best practices are being followed. In general, it is integrated into the commit pipeline for vulnerability identification. Then we have the dynamic analysis security testing, which is DAST. This type of verification is done at the runtime and is useful when all the components are integrated and are functioning together. See, one thing that must be kept in mind is that no one size fits all. And it is the same case with both SAST and DAST. The third one is the penetration testing. This type of testing is done for application or the software, which have highly sensitive data and are very, very critical. An example could be a bank's website. Penetration testing is done at the hacker level to identify and manage or mitigate the risks of the failure and being hacked. So this is all regarding the security testing. And finally, we should have a defined standard response process. It is a plan which is crucial for addressing in case there is a threat that has emerged. This should be according to your organization's defined threat response policy. I guess it covers almost all the points and practices as defined in the Microsoft's security development lifecycle, and they conform to the industry best practices and must be adopted. So finally, we are at the end of our first module in the 4-part series. In this module, we discussed about the layered approach to security and also about utilizing Azure Security Center. Then we also discussed about working with identity and access in Azure AD and understanding the data encryption and how it is handled in Azure. We also discussed about the application lifecycle management security and the best practices as designed by Microsoft. This is something which is used within Microsoft also for its product development, and my recommendation is that it definitely must be adopted. This module about managing identity and access in Azure is a part of Azure Administration Certification AZ-104. So you can download all the training material from azuretraining.com. You can follow me on Twitter, which is at mstechtrainings, and also on LinkedIn. The URL is there for your reference. And I'll see you in the next session. Till then, keep azuring.